My name is Russ Fox, and I'm joining you from Sedona, Arizona. I recognize that there are people that will be continuing to come on, but there are going to be those people who watch this after the fact. So we greet you all. Welcome. It is now 7 o'clock on the Pacific Coast, and since we don't change meeting times, we don't change our clocks here in Arizona. Right now, we are on Pacific Coast time. So anyway, we're here tonight to enjoy a conversation that will center around two very important principles. I'm just going to suggest them and then introduce one of my very finest colleagues, friends, and all around enjoyable person. And that's A.L. Kinder. Again, my name is Russ Fox. I'm here from Sedona, Arizona. I am a SHEN therapist, a SHEN instructor. I'm also a symphonic conductor. That's where the first 50 years of my career also centered around, but for the last 35 or 40, I have been very much involved with SHEN therapy. And it's a pleasure to be able to share this with those of you here and those of you not yet here or who will be joining us later. All right. So that's it for introductions, except let me have the honor of introducing A.L. Kinder. A.L., where in the world are you and what do you do?
Well, as Russ has said, my name is A.L. Kinder, and I'm in Vancouver, Washington, which is considered a suburb of Portland, Oregon. Again, Pacific Coast time. I've had a rather possibly unusual lifetime, starting off from infancy, where a good deal of karma came up in my first 24 hours, which I found as I matured, and I use that word in air quotes, because I am very much a feeler and empath, one who I have no idea if I will ever mature, because I love the joy of childhood. But like a child, I haven't developed any calluses, and that brings me to a rather unique situation. We're going to begin this evening with what we call an invocation. To those of you who are part of the Tao community, this will be familiar to you. To those who are joining because they saw the topic on some social media and thought it might be interesting. The reason we do an invocation is to allow ourselves to connect with our selves, with our inner selves and our outer selves. We call those souls, and we begin by saying hello to them. So if you would join me by letting yourself move into a comfortable position, if possible, have your spine away from a chair or wherever you're sitting so that the energy can flow freely. And if it's necessary for your spine to be supported, then go ahead. The energy is going to flow anyway. So we do what's called a yin-yang balancing or yin-yang position, where we take our left hand, we allow our right hand to hold our thumb, and we let our fingers fold together. We allow that to come down to our belly button, and then very gently relax your hands so that the thumbs are on the belly button and the palms of your hands are facing the belly button, but essentially your hands are in the abdomen, in the area that is known to us in Shen as Kaf. It's a mantramic sound that calls that second chakra or second soul house into awareness. There are other sounds that vibrate there, but the word Kaf is one that we use quite often in Shen. All right, so let your eyes close. Let yourself begin to connect with your breathing. Notice that you can breathe through your nose. You can also breathe through the back of your head. There are two soft spots next to the spine, right where the skull and the top of the spine are. They're called the occiput. So this form of occiput breathing has some very specific functions, which we may go into later. So allow yourself to breathe in through your spine and deep into your body and wide. Let that breath come in. Move in through the occipital breathing into your spine, deep and wide. And we'll say hello to our outer souls. Dear Source, Tao, Hashem, God, Goddess, Universal Love, whatever your deity might be. Also, hello to all of the archangels and angels, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, ascended masters, sainted beings, and all the beings of love and light. We love you. We honor you. We deeply, deeply appreciate you. And we ask too that Mother Earth and that the spiritual animals and the spirits of the plants, the spirits of the minerals, and all of the countless planets and stars and galaxies, we invite you to join us. We love you. We honor you. We appreciate you. Would you please assist us in opening our listening, in opening our hearts, and furthering our evolution? And we ask this not just for those present, but for all sentient beings. Thank you. And to our inner souls, each of us has cells and organs and systems such as circulatory and respiratory, and each of them respond to vibration. Now, science teaches us we are vibrational fields. So let us say hello to our inner souls. So dear our souls, our minds, our hearts, our energy, and our bodies, all of the systems in our physical, we love you, we appreciate you, we honor you. You have the ability to be healthy and happy. Do a great job. Thank you. All right. So let your eyes open. And this particular evening or day or morning, depending on what part of the world you're from, is dedicated to our relationship with what nourishes us. And we're taught that everything has a positive and a negative, a yin and a yang, a back and a front. So along with what nourishes us, there are things that don't nourish us. And what do we do? Do we allow in just certain kinds of nourishment? Do we push it away? That's one of the things that we're going to be exploring. So I had requested that everybody who come bring along a bottle of water that was sealable, that was not more than about half a liter or about 16 ounces. And also a clean cup, could be quite small. And I will just talk for a moment or take some questions while people get that ready, if it isn't ready already. So Holly, has anybody put questions into the chat? I'm using using a device that doesn't allow me to read chat that easily.
No, not yet. They have
Not yet. Okay. All right. Is there anybody who has any questions? And I also want to thank, I think it's Amrita. It's a little, again, it's not an easy thing to read on this system that I'm using, but it's 3 o'clock in the morning where she is, and she wanted to be here live. So I really appreciate that.
I might just take a quick moment, Eliel, and say
Sure.
how we're going to organize the evening so everybody knows where we're going and or this time we are spending together. Eliel is quite an expert in an area of flower essences and the energies involved that are so beneficial, that are nourishing to various aspects of us. And so in times past, we have switched this. Today, because of the nature of what we are both going to be sharing, we both felt it wiser that she begin, and then I will take the charge on the actual SHEN therapy and go with that. Okay, Eliel, thank you.
Okay, so do you know that we don't just eat and digest our food, but we eat and digest our experiences? And some of us have had experiences that are just not digestible, that are downright toxic. Some of us have had repeated toxic experiences with coworkers, with family, with what's going on in the world. And we describe toxic as something that is filled with negative information that we respond to by contracting. And as Russ will talk a little bit later, contraction does all sorts of things, particularly to our digestive system. When our body is contracted, then we can't properly digest our food. It's designed as kind of a reflex to try and minimize what's toxic. Well, there are lots of other ways to dilute and diffuse and to relieve what is toxic. And we'll be talking about a couple of ways to do that. So I got into flowers way back in 2000, about the same time that I heard the song that we played at the beginning. And for those who have registered, we'll send a link to the song. It was written by a German group, and it's called I Know Because My Heart Tells Me So. So our hearts are very open when we're born. No matter what's been going on while we were gestating, we were feeling and responding to what was going on with our mother, with her partner, if she had one, with what was happening in the world. But essentially, when we're born, our hearts are pretty open. And as we go through life and meet and have events and experiences that are painful, we begin to contract. And this contraction is in layers, particularly if something is repeated. So one of the things that we know is that we're composed of energy, vibration, fields, if you will. And that early on, I began to listen to nature and to listen to flowers. I went and did some formal studying with the founders of the Flower Essence Society and with people who had direct contact, a generation removed from Edward Bach, who founded the Bach Flower Essences. And flowers have, the plants have a very specific, a very unique, a very beautiful existence, a resonance. They don't argue with you. They don't ask you a lot of questions. They simply be who they are and radiate or emanate, resonate their particular attributes. Now, every flower knows its ideal place to grow. And a lot of flowers have a very wide tolerance for a lot of conditions. Some of them are so sensitive that they'll only grow in very small areas, very specific conditions, sometimes only in hothouses other than a specific geographic area in nature. So the flower that we're going to use today, I'm going to ask Holly to put the first slide up. It may be one that you're familiar with. It might be one that you're not familiar with.
It's up there.
Yeah, it is. So I'm just thinking. Okay, we'll get to know it first before I do the actual demonstration. So let yourself look at this flower, but allow your eyes and your belly to be soft. So when you look, allow the flower to come into you rather than try and figure something out. Allow yourself to feel what you feel when you look at this flower. Be aware of its shape. and its color and also the hue of the color. And it's a flower that is a wild flower, but it also cultivates very easily, and a lot of people have it in their gardens. When I tell you its name, if you want to, you can Google it later. Lots and lots of information on this particular flower. It happens to be an edible flower, and not only the flower itself, but the leaves when they're young and the stem. And there are, it's said to taste, it was such a long time ago that I ate it. I remember it tasting a little like honey. The descriptions that I read said it tasted like cucumber, but with some sweetness. So it adds color to salads. I had it on a on a bagel, just picked fresh from the garden. Okay, Holly, if you would show the next slide. So the flower is called borage. And if you notice, before it opens, and I think we can go on to, let me just see. Yeah, let's go on to slide 3. If you notice, before it flowers, the buds are covered with little tiny hairs. One more slide, Holly, please. Slide 3, yeah. The buds are covered with little tiny hairs, and they droop. And that when it opens and blossoms, the stem lifts up and the flower opens. And the flower looks in all different directions. They don't all grow in one direction. Now, hairs on flowers indicate a great deal of sensitivity. So you'll notice that the buds are covered with sensitivity and they droop towards the earth. When the flower opens, there's still some hairs, but they're on the outer portion. They're not on the flower itself. Okay, next slide, please. Slide 4. Yeah. When I first encountered the flower essence, not the flower itself, it was so potent that I thought it was huge, but it actually is quite small. It's kind of as you can see, it's just about the size of the thumb. Now I have a bigger view of what's been posted, so that's kind of interesting. Okay. And let's go on to slide 5. So that's the official name of the flower. It's called Borage officialis, and it was brought to Europe by the Romans. And the word Borago or Boraggio is kind of a corruption of the word coraggio, which is where people believe that this came from. Coraggio or cora is Latin for heart. And ago is to build up or to lift up. So this is a flower that lifts up our heart. And very particularly, I'll tell you in a moment what it does. But before I go on, does anybody want to share what their impressions of this flower are? As you look at the flower for the first time, anything particular that strikes you about this flower?
To me, the center of the flower reminds me of a bee, the nose, the front of a bee.
That's very perceptive. Most of the pictures, as I was looking through the internet for ones, the flowers were covered with bees. Bees love borage. And like the bee, borage flower benefits its whole community. The bees work for their own hive. These flowers are particularly planted in gardens because they help a lot of different plants grow. And again, that's something you can look up. Thank you. Anybody else want to share when they look at the borage flower?
Well, if you don't mind me jumping in for just a second.
Absolutely. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it was interesting that on the very first slide, it's like the blue petals are there, but these green ones are like supportive, like you can do this, whatever that means. But it's not just a single radiance of blue, but the green behind it, giving it kind of a push or a support system.
Yes, nice noticing. Good. Anybody else? Paula, you look like you're about to say something. No. Okay, so I
Okay, I'll say something. I was like moved by the way the blue petals just, they kind of twisted, and they just felt they look very soft, and I don't know, I don't really have the word, just lovely.
Yeah, yes, they are, and they are very soft. Blue in flower, in the doctrine of signatures, the colors and the shapes and where the flowers grow and how they grow give you a hint of some of their spirit medicine. And blue, like the sky, is always uplifting. Now, occasionally you'll see a pink borage flower or a very light lilac, but mostly they're this beautiful, almost incandescent blue. And a lot of the photographs I saw looked pretty faded, but I was able to find a few that reminded me of the borage that I had met years ago. So I wrote 2 notes. Borage helps lift. See if I can read my writing here. Helps lift emotional heaviness and grief in the heart. It provides courage. Like the sky, it is uplifting and spiritualizing, at the same time provides an unfolding mantle of comfort for the soul. So borage flower came to me to be used even before I had the topic. But as I meditated further, I realized what is it that keeps us from doing what we know we have to do? Some of us are disciplined, and that's not an issue for them. But it's not easy to be in the world in these times and not have a heaviness of heart. So borage is very useful for that. For those who are not doing what they know how to do, it's usually for one of a couple of reasons. An emotion that comes in so fast and is so strong that our ego takes over, sometimes before we can even feel it. Most often it's fear, sometimes it's overwhelm or grief. But borage helps with all of those, particularly with fears that are buried. And like the tools that were taught by Master Sha, with Tao calligraphy, with chanting, Tao song, Tao dance, all of the wonderful tools he brings, borage works with a very high frequency resonance. So you can sit beside the living plant and tune into it. But that's not always practical to walk around with a clump of dirt and some borage growing in it. So flower essences bring the living spirit of the flower. You can buy them over the counter. The Flower Essence Society, I know, produces borage. Several other companies do as well. But about 10, 15 years ago, I was given an empowerment by an ascended master who said to me that with this empowerment, I would be able to put health into water. And I didn't know what it meant at that time. I have an inkling now what it means. Water itself holds imprints. Emoto, they wrote a wonderful book on how water responds to even our thoughts. That if we think thoughts like love, and they took a look at the water crystals, they're in beautiful symmetrical shape. But if they thought words like hate or anger, if something came from pollution and they looked at the water molecules, they were all misshapen and darkly colored. And so his experiment was to take these misshapen crystals and start to, around them, begin to say and give the words of love and other positive vibratory words. And sure enough, the crystals changed. So water has the ability to hold concepts. So, having said that, what we're going to do is to take a taste of the water that you brought. I'm going to explain how to do that in a minute. And then what I'm going to do is, again, something that was given to me, to be able to put the essence of the flower into the water. All right, so if you would, 1 second, okay, very good. So if you would take the water that you brought and pour a very small amount, less than a shot glass, into the empty cup that you have. And a couple people smiling. We've done this once before. All right, so let me describe what you're going to do next. You're going to take a sip of this little bit of water that you brought, but you're going to hold that in your mouth, and I'd like you to taste it. I invite you to feel its texture. And when you have a sense of what this water, your awareness of this water, then let yourself swallow and notice how far down you can feel the water go and what it feels like going down. Okay. All right, so now I'd like you to let your eyes close for a moment. Actually, Holly, if you would put up the first slide or the last slide of the borage flower. If you want, you can open your eyes, kind of soft focus. So whether your eyes are closed or whether you're looking at the image that Holly is going to put on the screen, let yourself feel this borage flower. Let yourself connect with it. And give me a moment. I'm going to go quiet while I connect as well and ask it to imbue and enter the water. Thank you very much. All right. And now if you would pour water from the larger container, that's where the flower essence imbued borage water is. If you pour that into the small glass, just a little bit, and then let yourself take a sip of that small amount and hold it in your mouth and see if the water has changed its taste. See what the water tastes like now, what it feels like. And when you have a sense of that, let yourself swallow and notice how far down you can feel that water and what kind of effect you feel as you bring your awareness and you connect with the sensations and the essence of borage. Mm. Mm. Now, one thing that is going to be an experiment is people who are watching the replay of this for the first time. I am thinking that their water, they can also have their water energized. I don't know because this is only the second time I've done this, and the first time I was told no, just the people who are live. But it would be a nice experiment if you are watching the replay to bring along water and try this experiment and see if you notice a difference. Okay, would anybody like to share what their experience was? Did the water taste any different?
I'll share.
Thank you, Paula.
It did, but I'm having a difficult time verbalizing what it's like I could taste the scent. Or that's how it seems. It just had a different flavor, but it seemed like more of a scent than an actual taste. But I tasted it, so there you go. And the first time I only felt the water come down to just past my throat. And this time, at first I only felt that. And then suddenly I was aware that I did feel this feeling going all the way down into my stomach. I don't even know if that's where it ended. Just this thing going down my core. It was quite nice.
Very nice. And if one doesn't have words for this, the most important thing is that you connect with what the water feels like, but also as you're connecting with that feeling, see how your body is responding to it. What are you feeling in your body as well as what are you feeling in the water? And that's more important than, to me, the words. People will have, it's pretty interesting the way this translates. However, flower essence healing is universal. Any place that flowers grow, you have what's called hedge witches, you have herbalists. Borage is used as an herbal, again, to help with heart maladies and despondencies, and there's some experiments going with using the herb to help depression. The essence itself, to me, is a very nice, clean way. It's not compounded. There's no chemicals added to it. As you can hopefully all have experienced, there's something different when you connect with these flowers. Is there anybody else who'd like to share their experience? Yes, go ahead. I think, yeah.
Mel.
Hi, Mel.
I don't think I did it right, because I think you said one container with water already in it, less than 500 milliliters, and my container is over a liter. But interesting, there wasn't much difference between the two waters poured from the big bottle, but I have with me my homemade electrolyte water with lemon, lime, sea salt, and boiled tap water. And I had a drink after of that, and it was more refreshing. And it was more flavorful.
Interesting.
And it's less than 500 milliliters of water in that one.
Yeah, you might try pouring half of the large amount out down to its, if you're doing liters, it's, I think, less than 0.47 liters. And then do the replay and see if there's any difference.
I'll be doing that. I don't know how you get the replay, though. How do you do that?
Well, if to get on this, you gave us your email, and what I'll be doing is I'll be sending the link to everyone. Also, our contact information will be up, so you can contact me privately if you'd like to do a personalized experiment.
Sorry, how do I get you my email?
You already did. In order to get on here, Well, actually, I don't know if it's being live streamed or Facebook. Tell you what, if you put your email into the chat and
Okay.
and Paula or Holly, if you could copy it, then I'll make sure you'll get that. All right. Anybody else like to share their experience?
It's kind of hard to keep me quiet. So I have a sense of what happened. I was using, because it was convenient and it was certainly less than the amount that you requested, one of these little bottled waters, and using the top as my little
Oh, wow.
smaller
Okay.
than a shot glass. Okay. The first time the sip, it was a little bit, I want to say metallic.
I was going to say because of the cap.
Up in the salivary glands, and it just was swallowed like water. I wasn't aware that it did anything. It just disappeared down the tube.
Mhm.
The second time, it had a color to the flavor. Now, I know the flower is blue, but there was a sense of yellow, of light, at least, that kind of swelled in the mouth. And when I swallowed it, it did not go straight down. It kind of went sideways, filled the chest.
Nice.
So whether that's heart, lungs, anything that inhabits that area, it was kind of a richness that I experienced. So very powerful. Thank you.
It is. You're welcome. It's an amazingly powerful essence. The color yellow in flowers brings along an illumination. And to somebody who's done a lot of work with their own fears and with the events that have led up to contraction and have worked on themselves in this particular way, I can see the borage flower and its courage and its uplifting simply widening that area and bringing illumination to it. So kind of fascinating that you experienced it as yellow, as golden.
You are also my SHEN therapist, and you know that I've been dealing with certain aspects of the heart and above and below it, and we'll talk about that later. But you're right, there's an impacted area, and this seemed to relax that whole thing. So thank you.
And since we took just such tiny sips of it, that bottle that you have is yours to keep. The flower essence not having any preservatives such as brandy or apple cider vinegar in it will last anywhere from it will last about a week, but it's a small amount. The more often you take it, not the larger the amount, but the more often you take it, it will resonate. So especially if you're aware of particular blockages, you might do a say hello practice like we did at the beginning with those blockages, and then invite the flower essence, invite the essence of borage to come and assist with that. So one of the things I also learned is that if you buy over-the-counter flower essences and you take them as if they're like vitamins, you get a result, but you get a much, much better result if you connect with the flower itself and you ask it to assist you. In other words, it's a living vibration. It's not just it's not a dead, inert thing. So the water that you have has a living soul, the Shen Jing, we would call it, of the borage. And so the more often you sip it, the stronger it is. And that bottle should last or the glass should last at least 3-4 days, which is a nice experiment, time to experiment. All right. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share about their experience with borage? All right. So before I turn it over to Russ, just a summation of the fact that when we have contractive, unnourishing experiences, we tend to contract. And that working with resonances that have us, that carry positive information, that give us a sense of expansion, And Russ will be talking about SHEN therapy, but that's one of the things that we do is we help the negative information become positive information through resonance. And that helps every system, especially our digestive system. Okay, Russ, your turn.
All right, Russ will take it away. Well, now you all understand what I mean when I say Eliel is one of my favorite people, because she has talents and abilities that remind me of my grandmother, and I mean that in the most respectful.
Oh, thanks. I didn't think I had that much gray hair.
But no. Well, I take after my grandma, but I say that because she comes from the Scottish traditions. And there's lots of connection in Celtic societies with flowers, flower essences, with many aspects of nature. And so I'm a Mackenzie through and through. And so I really enjoy listening to you, and you always surprise me. I'm just a mere participant when you do those things. Thank you so much. I am going to ask the hosts if you'll allow me to be a co-host so I can share my screen. I don't know if there's anything else I'm supposed to do other than, okay, I'm now a co-host. That's wonderful. So I'm going to share my screen and see if this does what I want it to do. Is that doing what it's supposed to do? Do you see it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I have this here because one of the things about SHEN therapy is that it's not a transmission kind of a therapy. This is not Reiki where it is given as an attunement. SHEN therapy is an actual real study, and it does have its roots in modern science, as well as it being a combination of ancient wisdom. And the more we find out about ancient wisdom, the more we're realizing the intimate connections that we've been dealing with 40 years. And it's making so much more sense now that we have an ancient wisdom background through the SHEN, through the Tao community and under Dr. Master Sha. I put this slide up only because we are going to be having a training coming up in late September, and it is an in-person 1 week intensive. And so one would be doing this for their own interest, for their own benefits. And also it's the first step if somebody wishes to move through in a training aspect and become actually certified. So I just have this up here for that. But the real reason that we're here is for me to, now come on, I'm sharing my screen. Great. Wonderful. Well, okay, folks, sorry. I have just thrown myself off, but that's okay. I'm going to talk while I do this. That never works. So give me 1 second. I go here. There we are. Thank you. I think what I shall do is run it through this way and make it easier to see. All right. What is SHEN therapy? And some of you have seen this, and I'm going to jump through it a little bit more quickly because some of you have been here, but many of you have not, those of you who are possibly checking in after the fact. SHEN is an ancient concept. SHEN is not just exclusive to China and the Tao. The actual SHEN therapy ancient connection is with Egypt, not with China. And in Egypt, that symbol that you see with the circle on the line, you'll see this in hieroglyphics often. And it has transmuted into other images where they embellish both of them, but basically it's a round thing on a flat thing. It could be the sun or the moon and on Earth. It could be a horizon. It could be many things, but its basic meaning of the word SHEN is the totality of everything. Now, if you take a look at the word Shen as the Tao community uses Shen, it's a combination of three different things rolled into one, and that is soul, heart, and mind. Soul being that part of us which is here to learn. It's our earthly soul. It comes as an essence from the Tao, the source, the divine creator of all. But then we get to the heart, and that's that thing that infuses. We're talking about the spiritual heart, not the physical pump, but that heart. It infuses our entire body. Every cell is both permeated and surrounded by this energy, which we would call the spiritual heart. This is the seat of our emotions. And this is why we all feel various emotions in very specific locations. All of us feeling sadness in the heart, for instance. We all know that. If I lose my courage, where am I going to feel contracted? Most likely in my heart. If I feel shame and guilt, it's probably going to be in that area Eliel talked about called the kaf. So we all have, if you're human, and we think most mammals also, we feel this emotional contractive response in exactly the same locations. All of us, despite culture, age, period of history. And then the third concept is our mind, which is a very tricky thing. It's our perceptions, how we see things. But interestingly, how we see things depends on what we're picking up from our spiritual heart. So emotions can change our thoughts, our abilities to see, our abilities to actually interpret the world around us. So that said, just Eliel and I, we decided that probably the most intriguing symbol, if you would, if we're trying to combine ancient and modern, let's take two ancients and create a modern. And that would be this: ancient wisdom, Tao wrapped of the Chinese, wrapped in the circle of the ancient Egyptian. And the lotuses are there just because Eliel likes pretty flowers. Okay.
Now, wait a minute. The lotuses are there because we've all been in the mud, and that they blossom out of, they're fertilized by the clay of the earth, so to speak, or by our experiences. That's the reason that they're there. And yes, I do like pretty flowers.
Yes, well, you and I know that, and I'm glad. Thanks for your sense of humor. But that it is a pretty thing when you and intellectually absorbing to me when you take two ancient cultures and to realize that the essence of both of those, thousands of miles apart and in a lot of years very similar in their origins, they combine into what Eliel and I have kind of adopted as our own personal emblems of what Shen is. I want to just jump quickly through this next one. What is Shen? A lot of people have heard this, and on internet, Eliel's really good about putting out messages about Shen therapy, trainings, and have you thought about this? And what about that? Well, it's because Shen therapy is an all-inclusive concept that we have a field of energy. We are a field of energy. And that the physio part of who we are and the emotional part of who we are intimately entwined, to the point that if I have a problem, I feel it. Why do I feel it? Something has tweaked in this field of mine. And the field is what we call bioactive. When a group of people in 1992 were brought together, they were all leaders of various energy therapies. Certainly therapeutic touch was involved, Reiki was there. And the man who was the scientist who actually came up and developed Shen therapy, Richard Pavic, was invited to be the chairperson for this committee for the National Institute of Health. And they spent time dealing with their various concepts of what is this energy inside all of us. Does it exist? Yes. How do we know? Well, mainly because our bodies respond to it. When it changes, our bodies change. And so in 1992 was the first time that group, under the leadership of Richard Pavick, decided that let's have a new term. And the new term really ought to be the biofield. Sounds possibly a little left brain, but you take a look at it and you say, it is a field of energy. It infuses and surrounds the entire torso. We feel it in others. We can read other people's emotions and their states of awareness, but our bodies respond to it. So it is bioactive, a bio-responsive field. So for short, biofield. You'll never see it in print prior to 1992. And nowadays it's used, and unfortunately it's used in all sorts of ways. In this world for years, if you didn't understand something, you said it's either magic or we don't understand it, or it's some sort of energy. That's not good enough if you're a scientist like Richard Pavick. He in the 70s tried to disprove the whole concept of subtle energies and ended up proving that they actually do exist and that they are intimately tied with our emotions. Now, there's a practice. People do it in many different ways. I first encountered it as part of a self-hypnosis practice that I was doing back in the 60s. But that is when you go inside your body, you bring your awareness fully inside. And you're aware, not with your eyes, of course, but just all of the sensations that are going on. And do I feel somehow some kind of tension anywhere? Any contraction? Do I feel, may I just now introduce the term, unnourished in some way? And how can I bring nourishment to a field of energy? This is interesting, is it not? If I'm going to take a look at what SHEN does here at the bottom, with SHEN clients can rediscover their natural self-confidence, joy, well-being, and love, all within the calm, powerful, and ever-present now. That's a huge concept. And every time, now most of you watching, listening, will know who Dr. Rulin Xu is. She's co-director of that portion of Tao which deals with Tao science. She is herself a physicist, a quantum physicist. Some pretty heady stuff. But what she's realized is that ancient Taoist concepts are, in fact, quantum physics in every way. One explains the other in both directions. And so if we are asked, as she asks us to do so often, to close your eyes, take a breath, go inside, bring your full awareness into your torso. And as we move through various places of the torso, her request is to see where is it that you feel contracted, dark, incomplete, as if there is some undigested thing that needs to either be moved or dissolved. The famous question Charles Dickens' character Scrooge asks in the very first act, he begins to realize the ghost of Marley is right there in his room, and he's talking to himself. Am I actually seeing this, or are you a piece of undigested roast beef that's giving me a problem? So the idea of being aware that there are areas that we have, things that we have brought into our system, which are not beneficial. Most of them we put there by choice. Now that seems strange, but we put them there as judgments that we give ourselves. In other words, we eat the spoiled food. We accept that instead of demanding the nourishment. We take the non-nourishing in. And because that is so difficult, we don't really want to get rid of it. It was bad enough going in. You can only imagine what it's going to be like coming out. If that's an emotional difficulty, do I really want to relive that? SHEN therapy is that therapy which allows us nobly, with authority, with great gentleness, to move into that very contracted spot and allow ourselves in a safe manner to complete that incomplete emotional episode we stepped on when we were 6 or 10, and that embarrassment happened, or we broke a leg, or we did something which was contractive, and we kind of hold on to that pain. I've said many times that for most of us, what counts as our emotions, our persona, is in many ways a kind of a defense mechanism that's long outlived its usefulness. And if we want to live a full life, a rich life, one that we allow the influence of Tao, of the unified spirit, of all of those fields which can benefit us, SHEN therapy is an adjunct that allows us to move more deeply, to accept more deeply, to clean house more thoroughly, to accept the nutrition, the good, the positive information as we talk about, to accept that and realize that's consistent with who we are. That's nourishment. That's virtue. It's called so many wonderful things, but it is taken into our systems and allows us to be fully who we are. Now, I'm going to take and give myself an opportunity to tell you a story. And the story is one that, how can I say? It flowed about 2 weeks ago. And I believe that this little story has everything to do with authenticity of the individual and the nourishment that individual can bring in if they choose to. And so I was grinding around as to, now how can I really get to the meat of the matter? And I think I need to tell you a story. And so it's a great privilege of mine to share this with you. The story is simply called The Carp, the Koi, and the Lily Pad. So I'm going to allow, you can look at the screen if you like, but best you allow your mind to be the stage and allow me just to be the voice. We will create this story and this world together. The carp, the koi, and the lily pad. There is a pond in which some fish swim close to the surface, while others swim much deeper. At both levels, the fish are swimming clockwise and under a lily pad, upon which sits a beautiful, ever-blooming lotus. The upper fish appear large, imposing, and potentially menacing due to their grayish scales and big whiskers. They always seem to be on guard and ready to strike. But in contrast, the lower fish, they seem so small and distant, yet occasionally passers-by catch a rich flash of color from their brightly hued skins. 2 fishermen approached the pond. The younger angler decided to catch some of those more colorful fish to bring them home for dinner. His wife would be so pleased, yet his line was not long enough. and the glorious little fish would not come up to take the bait. Disappointed with his efforts, the young fisherman abandoned his goal and wandered off. Waiting his turn, the older, more experienced fisherman cast in his even shorter line, and one by one, he successfully offered the bait to the large, gray surface swimmers. As the final few menacing-looking fish were lifted from the pond, the brighter fish began to rise. So with each ascending spiral around and below the lily pad, these beautiful swimmers circled closer and closer to the surface. Not surprising to the old angler, as they rose from the depths, these once small-looking little fish were actually much larger and healthier than the menacing ones that had earlier dominated the surface. In their absence, only now could these healthy, grand, and gloriously colored fish fully reflect the sun's radiance. Even the lotus around which they swam took on a brighter hue as each petal came forth. It would take the younger fisherman many more years before he learned the lesson he chose to pass up that day. Had he asked the old man's assistance, he might have learned the truth that we all have passed up so many times. As the old man would have explained, "You see, son, you're a good boy, and you have such wonderful natural qualities inside you. Your strong character, self-confidence, your joy, love, inner peace, and well-being are deep within you. But you've allowed your fears, your shames, your sorrows and angers to dominate. These difficult and uncomfortable surface feelings simply wish to be heard, felt, fully experienced, and released from your personal pond. My boy, I can tell you from experience that once you allow yourself the privilege of removing these dominating imposters, your life will finally radiate the natural goodness, the inner strength, confidence, gratitude, and the love, which are most certainly already alive and well, still swimming deep inside your soul. Son, don't be afraid to do what's necessary to invite them to the surface. That's the invitation to SHEN therapy. It's an invitation to actually for the class that we're going to do at the end of September. But most realistically, have we not all gotten to the point where accessing the joy has been difficult, it's been covered up, and we've made judgments of ourselves, and we've allowed that to be on the surface? This story came forth as a reaction to a painting that was given to my wife at least 30 years ago. The painting was drawn on silk by one of her students who was Chinese and very gifted as a painter. And it was of two koi fish swimming around and underneath a lily pad. The only difference between the picture and the story is that the picture is devoid of a lotus. Possibly the other fish needed to come to the surface before the lotus would appear. I don't know. However, this photo is of that very painting. A big fish, a small fish, when in fact, it's just a fish and a much larger fish deeper down. Your love, your strength, your confidence, that which is truly you. It's already there. That's why I said we use SHEN, we use Tao, we use all of these things to rediscover, to reacquaint, to re-access those portions of ourselves which are nourishing, which are the results of being nourished, and which can radiate out to nourish others. You are a sun, S-U-N. You are vibrant. You are filled with glorious energies. Most often, for many of us, we see a glimmer of it every once in a while, but we want to protect it. And we have these protective layers that are swimming around, keeping us safe, but it also keeps us detached, uninvolved, not able to fully enrich either our own lives or those around us. Now, that you could take that as a depressing thing, but please don't. The reality is that each of us have the beautiful core, and life is constantly coming forth as a lotus, petal by petal, more glorious all the time. So I hope you can remember that little story. And although we have all had the opportunity to be the younger fisherman who, I can't get that, I'm going to leave it, when in fact, it just takes the right tool to allow the bigger fish, the apparently bigger fish, to be lifted from the pond so that the other ones can come forth. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on SHEN itself, other than to say, have you ever wondered what your heart field might look like? Or any other part? Feel your heart. Oh, what am I feeling? Well, it's actually a field of circulating energy. We all have it. We all have multiple of these. Now, looks like a slinky to me that has been joined together, and in fact, it is. But if you would take energy coming up through this middle and up and then around and then back inside and up through the middle again. Now, where have you seen this before? Up through the middle, around to the outside and back in. Well, you probably saw it in school when you were a kid. And it was probably I'm old enough where we had pull down charts. I don't know if any of you that happens anymore, but here's planet Earth. And guess what's wrapped around planet Earth? You have our magnetic fields. So the magnetic fields, what happens? Out of the North Pole, what's happening? The magnetic fields shoot out of the North Pole and around the outside into outer space, and then wrap around again in through the South Pole and whoop, straight through the Earth, and this constant wrapping around. This shape is called a toroid. All aspects of our biofield are toroids. Each one of our emotions is experienced within a toroid. It is a vibrational field. Taken together, my heart toroid or field, my solar plexus, where I might feel anger, or how do I relate to my boss or my wife, or when there's multiple people involved, that's the fear and tension you feel in just below your rib cage. And lower down in your lower belly, lower dantian, as the Chinese and Taoists would say, cough, as we would say. This is where it's all about you. It's your power, yes, but it's usually been not nourished. It usually has been fed poor ingredients. Might I say like sugar? Or like something like highly refined foods. It's not going to help physically. Well, what is that energetically like? We get embarrassed, shamed, and we make a judgment about ourselves. We're not good enough. We're not strong enough. Everybody's better than I am. I'm not right. Something's wrong with me. Amazingly, people who have made those judgments about themselves, their organs seem to act up also. Everything from lower back pain, gastrointestinal problems, urogenital problems. We have all sorts of organs in all parts of our bodies. And wherever we're holding incomplete digested energies, you're going to find that the tissues contract, as Eliel said. The response of living tissue to irregularities in the field is to contract. Well, hold on. Well, that interrupts your mobility, your flexibility. It interrupts the flow of fluids within your body because now we've tensed things up. I just use that as one example, but you could say the same thing. I'll repeat a very short example. I know I mentioned back in July when we gave one of these talks, or was it June? And that is that an older couple that has been married for years and years and years, and like high school sweethearts, and now they're hobbling down the road holding hands. Oh, it's so sweet. And one of them passes away. The other one, the remaining one, is encouraged by most societies to come up with the following answer. Oh, I know it's horrible. I will miss her, but we had such a wonderful life. Amazingly, I'm taking the male aspect. We had such a wonderful life. She was such a wonderful lady. She wouldn't want me to be sad. So I will move along and try to bring joy and remember her. Well, do you realize that second party, most times the remaining partner is passed away within 6 months to a year? And almost always it has to do with heart or lung problems. If we refuse to express, to feel, to fully experience, to be totally aware, observe, and feel these irregularities, if they are stuck and we hold on to them, the physicality changes. It becomes inefficient. And so if someone passes away and the partner is now passing away 6 months to a year later of what? Coronary malfunction, pneumonia, all things that have to do with the heart area. They died of what? You could say they died of a broken heart. And you would be absolutely correct. Because they have held on to an unnourishing thing without allowing it to fully come out, to fully express the grief, to fully express the anxiousness of it all by saying, oh, it's okay. Suppress, suppress, suppress. How much of our lives are we suppressing what we would find such great strength and live a happier and longer life if we would fully allow it to be resolved, to fully be experienced? That's what SHEN does. That's the reason for SHEN therapy. And I will give you one example. This was probably April of this year. I got a call from a client. I'm going to just, let's take that off for a second. I'll stop sharing. Here I am. Got a call from a client saying, Russ, I think I need some SHEN. I said, tell me a little about yourself. Well, I'm an artist, but I can't get inspired to do anything anymore. And it's key to who I am. I really need to access this. You got any help? Is there anything you can do? And so I realized that, yeah, come on in. Let's deal with this. She's in her 70s. She is a gifted, what they call a fiber artist. She takes cloth and makes constructions out of them that are glorious and just beautiful. I've seen some of her work, but she hadn't done any for a couple of years. And she realized that many aspects of her life were not as joyous as she was hoping for in her later years. We had a wonderful set of sessions during which she went inside, and symbology that was glorious. She saw this church, a great cathedral, and she couldn't get inside. Sounds like there may be a relationship here. As the sessions went on, there was about four of these meaningful ones and a wrap-up fifth, to be specific. In each one, she got closer to the door of the cathedral. In the third one, she actually got in and realized just inside the door, guess what? It's the steps down into the catacombs, just what she didn't want to see. But she went down into the catacombs and realized that there were people and things that needed who she was, and she was the missing ingredient that kind of allowed all of those characters to exit the cathedral together. And, well, long story short, that was April and May. In June, she was invited to be a presenter, an exhibitor at a festival here in Sedona, the International Hummingbird Festival. You really ought to come. It's an astounding festival of birds. And the presenters were incredible. And I laugh because I know one of them is online tonight. I didn't realize she was going to be here. But welcome, Carol. So there she was. And I went up to her, and she had a whole booth full of these magnificent creations. I said, tell me, how many of these are new? She said, almost all of them. After our sessions, it's like something burst wide open. I was able to be creative. I'm able to do more things. I learned a whole new technique of how to apply certain visual things from printed material onto silk using a vinegar. I mean, who would have ever expected it? So anyway, she just blossomed, completely blossomed. And I asked her, do you think it's time to come back to SHEN? She says, frankly, I feel complete. If I don't feel complete, I'll come back. No question about it. But it has literally changed the course of my creative life and probably the richness of my last decade or two. So these are the stories that Aliel and I are privileged to hear all the time. So the question would be, is there something that you have eaten energetically, whether it's an emotion that you carry around with you? If you go inside, if you take that breath through your nose, through the occiput in the back of your head, breathe in through that spine, deep and wide, and explore inside. And I will tell you that in almost every case, if you find that area of, my heart feels a little heavy, or there's a darkness that's sort of in my lower gut or my shoulder or wherever it is. Wherever you find that darkness, you are going to find that there is an ongoing, sometimes subtle, sometimes right in your face, physiological restriction to your movement, to your ability to be fully you. You know, I asked myself when I was a kid, because my parents were very religious, you know, the Scots are all Presbyterians, and Scots Presbyterians are really militant about this. And so the whole idea of sin was drilled into me, but I didn't really understand it or accept it. And now I think I finally do. You have a spirit. You have this biofield. It's you. It's your energy. It's who you are. That's the driver. And you are riding around in this vehicle that we all seem to have a little bit of a different model. I look one way, you look another way. Some are tall, some are short, some are light, some are dark, red hair, gray hair, you name it. You'll find somebody like that. That's just the vehicle. The real you is that spirit, that soul, that collection of toroids that we in SHEN refer to as the biofield. You might also want to call it your spiritual heart. And in my estimation, and only me, I think it is what the Taoists refer to as our SHEN. It's that thing which is full of our life experience that we then need to deal with. Hope some of this sounds familiar to some of you. But that area, I know that area where you find constriction, allow yourself to go as deeply as you possibly can. There is a thing that I was supposed to do, and I have 5 more minutes to do it. Eliel, nod your head. Is that what I do?
Exactly.
All right. Okay. Is there someone who I would like to do a voice experiment? Now, I know everybody says it. The scariest thing on planet Earth is to speak publicly. And the even more scary thing is to sing in public. Well, I'm not going to ask you to do either one. But would somebody be willing to just open their video and allow me to work with them for just one moment and allow you to come in contact with the real you? Anybody willing to do that? Huh? Uh-oh, Noelia and Paula. Oh, I've got several. You know what? You can all do it. And I expect you all will do it. Let's see. Is everybody? Yeah, most everybody is still with us. And those of you who are watching this after the fact, go ahead and do this. Noelia, come on camera, would you?
Okay, I'm coming.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. And okay.
There you are. Oops, there you were. Hi, Noelia.
Hello.
Good to see you. Good to see you again.
You.
All right. So now, when you speak, I'm going to ask you to say just that little nursery rhyme. Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. Go ahead.
So Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow.
Okay. Do you all hear her voice? I hope you hear it nice and well. It's a beautiful voice. And it's Noelia being nervous. Yeah, because she doesn't have any idea what's going on. And so what normally happens when you are a little bit out of control, you know, Russ Fox has kind of got the reins now. What's going to happen? So Noelia said, Mary had a little lamb. His fleece was white as snow. A little bit low in her voice. Did that feel comfortable for you to speak? Say it again, down where you just said it. Just repeat it.
Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow.
His fleece is white as snow. Did you see it? Everything goes down. Now, I'm going to ask Noelia, would you do this for me? I'm going to say just some nonsense, and I'm going to ask you to agree with me. Without opening your mouth, you would go like, So, you ready?
So I have to agree no matter
Oh,
what
you
you
just
say.
did it.
Oh, sorry.
So just agree with whatever I have to say.
Okay.
Okay. Most all of us carry around some difficulties that we don't share. Wouldn't you agree? It's probably going to be a good idea if we let these go. Would you agree with that one? Are you willing to take a look at what you're doing right now and let me make an observation? Now, did you hear the pitch of her voice? Each time it's up here. But Mary had a little lamb, his fleece was white as snow. Now, if you, Noelia, would Mary had a little lamb. Go ahead.
Mary had a little lamb.
Just agree. Mary, and where you allow yourself to speak up there, because that's your real voice. Yeah. Mary had a little lamb.
Mary had a little lamb. Whose fleece was white as snow.
No. We're having some fun here, but as you do this, now, thank you, Noelia.
Thank you, Russ.
But it's an important aspect. Most of us have this facade, and we want to talk and sound authoritative. So we allow ourselves to speak in the lower portion of our voice, when in fact, that is unhealthy. It's not as expressive. People who are truly gifted in speaking and gifted storytellers, they know the richness of using the full expressive range of their whole voice. And that if you change the pitch of your voice, you change the other person's ability to actually hear what you have to say. In other words, Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. That's one way of saying it. But Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. I can't be that expressive when I'm speaking down here in the pressed portion of my voice. You see what I'm saying? It's restricted if I'm low in my voice. If I have full command of the whole range from top to bottom, airy down into chest, then I can be fully expressive. I simply bring this as an example that your authentic self is multifaceted. Good nutrition allows you to do many things. Good nutrition energetically allows you to feel and express many things. If you're pressing on your voice, you can't express the full range that your language would allow you to. If you're pressing on your biofield, your energy, your SHEN, your Qi, and your Jing, then you don't have full access to your personhood, your authentic self. SHEN therapy is that therapy which is designed fully and completely to assist you to move forward as quickly as possible. And if you, it is a therapy. It's not magic. It's not a single once and done, but it is the shortest therapy I know of to make major and consistent, consolidated progress. As you allow things from your field to go, you access your core. Some people need to go, and I understand that it is 8:30. And so I'm going to wrap this up and just simply say, we do have this wonderful workshop coming up at the end of September. And as we go out, I'm going to ask our powers that be to put that back on after I say, thank you very much for being with us. And those of you who have joined again later on, thank you also. Hopefully you see this before September 24th and you choose to join us. in Vancouver, near Portland, Oregon. And for 1 week, we will have the joy of assisting each other by learning SHEN, by giving SHEN. And within that period of 1 week, you will give and receive 16 to 20 sessions, depending on who shows up and how we get ourselves organized. But I encourage each of you to explore your own inner world. And if you find that you would love to move faster through it and give yourself permission to move forward, SHEN therapy is one of the most wonderful ways of speeding up your Tao process. I understand what I'm saying, and I say it without reservation. It is one of the greatest adjuncts to progress within the Tao. And please give it a try. Thank you so very much. Eliel, anything?
Just that this is the first, since COVID and before, probably in about 5 years or more in North America, that this 7-day is being offered. And as glorious and wonderful as individual sessions are, when you give yourself the gift of just an immersion this way for a week, you will be astonished at what happens. Yeah. So let me just check in and see if there's any question. Yeah.
In the chat, Holly has posted contact information for you and I. Everybody, you can go in and just copy it quick and paste it someplace on your computer or telephone. And you can always go back and take a look at it again. The posts should appear also. So thank you. And Holly, if you'd be so kind as to post that slide. There it is. Thanks so much, folks. Nice to have had you join us.
All right. A real quick outvocation. Dear all of the Tao, dear the soul of Master Sha, who has so nourished us, dear all of our personal sifus and beings and heaven's teams and all of our treasures, thank you. We thank you from our deepest authentic hearts, souls, minds, bodies, our Shen Qi Jing, for coming today and helping us to experience and further our abilities to be happier and healthier. Thank you all for coming. I look forward to questions and contact information and just getting to know everybody a little bit better. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Noelia.
Thank you,
Thank
Ariel.
you.
Thank you, Russ. Love you both.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Paula.
All
Holly.
these wonderful hearts coming up.